Hello and good morning, students, and welcome once again to this poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. We have already done parts 1, 2, and 3, and now we'll begin with part 4. And we have read till now that the sailors, all the 200 sailors, they have died, and the protagonist or the narrator of this poem, he is still alive. And in the fourth part, he says, and then in the fourth part, actually, we return momentarily again back to the present. That when this wedding guest hears that all the sailors have died, the wedding guests interrupt the story, and he's afraid that the mariner too is also a dead person, or he is a ghost. Perished that day, he died that day, and he's telling the story as a sort of a zombie or a ghost, so he feels very scared. But the mariner reassures him that his body didn't drop like all the others. That is, he did not die. He remained alive alone. Why did he alone remain alive? Because in the dice game, life and death had won his soul. So again, this wedding guest he actually draws the readers back to the present time, placing greater emphasis on the terror of the sublime experiences of the mariner, which he describes. And the mariner, he assures the guest that he is still alive, and as one of the most important aspects of his journey is that he has to live to tell the tale. And as the mariner returns to his story, this solitude becomes a terrible part of the penance he must pay. That is, he was alone on the sea. He feels that he has no pity from the saints or pity from the God, and he is caught between the horrifying ocean and the dead bodies that surround him. That is, he never looked at nature. He was always abusive of nature, and now, especially in his conditions when he was all alone, surrounded by the vast ocean and by the 200 dead bodies, you can imagine what his state would be. So mariner, at this moment, he hates all these slimy sea creatures around him, believing that it was unfair that they should be alive while the sailors are dead. And in his anguish, he looks to heaven, but finds himself unable to pray. That he is unable to pray. भगवान से प्रार्थना भी नहीं कर सकता था. He was so obsessed by this horrifying image that he saw around him. So this solitude and stillness of the mariner felt while the sailors were still alive is compounded and made more extreme. And these moments were saturated with horror, and nature seems to be the mariners no more friendly than the corpses at his feet. That is, nature was not friendly with him, and main thing is that he did not recognize the beauty and the value of the nature in the form of either they were animals or water or birds. He did not recognize the beauty of the slimy things that lived in water, and he is rendered unable to pray. That is, he can't even pray. But after closing his eyes in an attempt to escape his punishment, the mariner finds that he is still being cursed by the look at the dead man's eyes. That, as I told you in the previous session in part 3, that all these sailors who were dying, they were staring at the mariner, and they just dropped dead because they could not speak. Their throats were parched, and this look in the dead sailors, the gaze of the dead sailors, it was haunting the mariner, and he was feeling very, very horrible and very terrible. So, as we know that eyes offer communication where other forms fail. So, and their power is such that this mariner can't even escape his punishment by shutting his eyes. How long can he shut his eyes? अपनी आंखें कितने समय तक बंद रखे? He simply keeps seeing. And the power of the dead man's eyes seemed to transcend life and death as they curse him, even as the corpses, that is, dead bodies, they were cursing him. So many days passed, and following this week long dead eyed curse, the mariner comes to his great realization. In the moonlight, it was at night time, when the ship's shadows remains an awful red, the mariner watches beautiful water snakes glistening and swimming beside the ship. That he looks at outside the ship, and in the water he sees water snakes glistening, they are shining. At their sight he exclaims, "Oh, happy living things!" The mariner cherishes, praises, and blesses the beauty of these creatures. And as a result, what happens when he sees beauty in these things? As a result, what happens? He believes his saint begins to take pity on him, and finally he is able to pray. और आखिर में वो प्रार्थना कर लेता है. And at this moment, the albatross slips off his neck and goes into the sea. It was a crucial moment when the mariner is able to reconcile the natural and the supernatural worlds, and he recognizes them as interrelated. So the moonlight, which illuminated much of his penance, now enables him to finally see the once slimy water snakes, जिन snakes से वो बहुत नफरत करता था. Now he sees beauty in them. That is, they were intended as beautiful, happy, created beings. And when he realizes this, when the love or appreciation for nature arises in him, this realization and embrace of the romantic attitude allows the mariner to pray. And he is in part absolved of his sin. That is, penance हो जाता है उसका. That is, इसका प्रायश्चित हो जाता है. And as the albatross, which was wound round his neck, this albatross slips off his neck and returns to the natural world, and it goes in the deep sea. That is, he can get rid of all this suffering when he appreciates nature. That is, God also wants us to appreciate nature. And when he appreciates nature, when he has love in his heart for those slimy creatures or these creatures which were living in the ocean, so suddenly everything changes, and even the albatross which was hung round his neck, it also breaks off. That is, God actually blesses him, that he feels one with the spirit. So this is how he feels lighter. So we know that this ancient mariner, he is now free of this burden of this dead albatross which was tied round his neck. And this is all for part 4. We complete the part summary of the part 4. And in my next session, I'll be taking part 5. Thank you.